Hello and welcome to all our viewers joining us on Facebook Live and on Zoom. Today we have an extra special SPAFA Sesh in store as it serves as the launch pad for SPAFA's much anticipated online course, Rock Art of Southeast Asia and the World. To assist in officially opening the course, please join me in welcoming Mrs. Somlak Charonpot, the Center Director of SEAMEO SPAFA, which is the SEAMEO Regional Center for Archaeology and Fine Arts, who is the organization behind Rock Art of Southeast Asia and the World online course. Please welcome Mrs. Somlak.
Director of SEAMEO Secretariat, Director General of the National Museum of the Philippines, Chairman of SEAMEO SPAFA Governing Board, Director General of the Thai Fine Arts Department, Governing Board member of SPAFA from Thailand, distinguished resource persons and friends from around the world. A very warm welcome to you from SEAMEO Regional Center for Archaeology and Fine Arts in Bangkok. We are pleased to kick off this online course, Rock Art of Southeast Asia and the World, which begins today and will run through May and June. Over the next few weeks, our participants who come from around the world will learn about the unique cultural heritage from Asia, Africa, Europe, the Americas, and Oceania. The rock art that we will be exploring is one of the unique repositories of the artistic achievements of our ancestors and a window for us to understand their views about themselves and the world around them. Rock art can be found in all parts of the world, but according to our mission to promote archaeology and heritage in Southeast Asia, we are especially pleased that this course will highlight the rock art of the region. You may be surprised to know that rock art is not only found in Thailand, Indonesia, and the Philippines, but also in Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, and East Timor. This course is in line with our mission to raise awareness and appreciation of Southeast Asian archaeology and cultural heritage, as well as to equip cultural heritage professionals with the skills and knowledge to manage and protect them. As we are just coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have also learned how to utilize online education effectively to provide teaching and training to a global audience. I would like to take this opportunity to thank SEAMEO Secretariat Director, Dr. Ethel Agnes Pascual Valenzuela, Director General Jeremy Barnes of the National Museum of the Philippines, and Director General Kitipan Pansuwan of the Thai Fine Arts Department for accepting to be our guest of honors for this opening ceremony of this online course. Special thanks go to our resource persons who are rock art experts from around the world for taking the time to contribute their knowledge and expertise in this project, and to our SPAFA team, especially our senior specialist in archaeology, who is an expert in rock art himself, Dr. Noel Tan. Most of all, thank you to all our participants. I wish all of you a fruitful and enjoyable learning experience, and may you be enriched with a better understanding of our shared knowledge and in heritage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Somlak, for your opening remarks. And next, please join me in welcoming Mr. Kitipan Pansuwan, who is the Director General of the Fine Arts Department, Thailand, and who is also SPAFA's governing board member from Thailand, to give his opening remarks.
Dr. Ethel Agnes Pasqua Valenzuela, Director of SEAMEO Secretariat, Mr. Jannie Barnes, Chair of SEAMEO SPAFA Governing Board, Member of the Director General of the National Museum of the Philippines, Mrs. Somlak Charonpot, Center Director of SEAMEO SPAFA, distinguished resort persons and participants. It's a great pleasure for me to meet with you today at the opening session of the online training program on rock arts of Southeast Asia and the world, hosted by SEAMEO SPAFA. The rock art site is prehistoric archaeological evidence that could be discovered across Thailand. Since the study beginning in the mid-1980s, nearly 500 rock art locations have been found. The majority of these can be found in the northeastern region. For example, the well-known rock art at Pa Tam National Park in Ubon Ratchathani province. The site contains a lot of huge pictographs such as fish, signs and symbols. In the north of Thailand, Patu Pha, Lampang province is a noteworthy source with over 1,800 images uncovered. Also, several sites have been identified in the south. Rock art are currently being researched and explored by Thai scholars. In the near future, many more research are expected to be released to general public. The rock art sites are one of the most important pieces of historical data. It allows modern humans to experience prehistoric existence, understand what belief our ancestors held, to get a picture of the ancient world they lived. It will be difficult to reconstruct human history that has been passed down for thousands of years if the historical evidence are lost. As a result, rock art research, conservation and management are vital practices that demand more attention and should be carried out over the world. The SEAMEO SPAFA Center launched off this training course targeted at improving personnel basic understanding of care management and conservation, as well as raising awareness about the importance of rock art access. Is a positive indicator, and it is an important step forward in Asian archaeology's attempt to better understand and prepare for the rapid impact of current world events on cultural access. As the Director General of the Fine Art Department and a member of the SEAMEO SPAFA Center Executive Committee from Thailand, I hope that the Fine Art Department and the Center will be able to collaborate on training courses in the other area in the future. Finally, I would like to express my sincere hope that this online training will be a success in laying a solid foundation for the preservation and restoration of rock art, one of humanity's earliest record. Thank you. ขอบคุณมากครับ
Thank you, Mr. Kitipan. And now to give his opening remarks is the Director General of the National Museum of the Philippines and current chairperson of SPAFA's governing board. Please welcome Mr. Jeremy Barnes.
Good day and warmest greetings to our friends, fellow workers in cultural heritage, and all our participants in the SEAMEO SPAFA course entitled Rock Art of Southeast Asia and the World. To my colleagues at the SEAMEO SPAFA Center in Bangkok, I am very grateful for the organization of this very interesting and very timely program. For now that we are steadily recovering from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, we who are associated with SEAMEO SPAFA believe that care for our cultural heritage is also an important part of our road to lasting recovery, as it has always been one of our top priorities since the beginning. As an emerging field of interest and research in archaeology and fine arts in the past decade, we should devote more attention to rock art, not only in the aspects of art and heritage management, but also in the protection of the natural environment, where these sites are found and are being studied and increasingly being protected and preserved. There are many countries in the world with rock art sites, and it is only in recent years that an appreciation of their diversity and presence is being appreciated. We in the Philippines certainly take pride in our own rock art sites, such as the Angono, Binangon, and petroglyphs, which have been under the care of the National Museum of the Philippines for so many years. And I'm glad that many of you have taken an interest in participating in this course. We expect everyone not only to receive technical knowledge on rock art, but also to share best practices as well as respective visions for their care and management. These are truly unique sites and unique pieces, unique expressions of the heritage of humanity in our respective countries, in the Southeast Asian region, and of course throughout the world. I assure you that you will have a great time throughout this course and learning from some of the finest experts on rock art from our region and around the world. I'm hoping that everyone will remain focused, engaged, and motivated for the rest of the course, and upon completion of the program, we look forward to everyone becoming part of our network of expert partners, again, in this field of appreciating, protecting, studying, and preserving our cultural heritage. With that, thank you very much, and good day to all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. And last but not least, to officiate the opening of SPAFA's Rock Art online course is the director of the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization Secretariat, Dr. Ethel Valenzuela. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ethel.
Mrs. Somlak Charonpot, Director of SEAMEO Regional Center for Archaeology and Fine Arts, Thailand, our distinguished speakers and esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all from Bangkok, Thailand. It is an honor for me to join you in this very important event. In the last decade, rock art research in Southeast Asia has advanced, with over 1,000 recognized rock art locations and the publication of several high-profile studies in recent years. Several rock art sites in the region have already been transformed into tourist attractions, and more sites are being considered for similar development, which addresses the need for the longer-term approach of conservation and management at these sites. In this regard, it is important that awareness of rock art sites in Southeast Asia and in other parts of the world be raised to provide a global perspective on this kind of archaeological materials. The importance of imparting knowledge and understanding of rock art studies is aligned with the SEAMEO Culture Agenda 2021 to 2030. We need to increase cultural literacy, promote appreciation of cultural diversity, and upskill our human resources in archaeology and fine arts. This is also in line with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, especially goal number 4 on quality education and also goal number 11, which is developing sustainable cities and communities, which includes strengthening efforts to protect and safeguard the world's cultural and natural heritage. But the COVID-19 pandemic has made adverse impact and disruption in all aspects of life, in education and training, in which educational institutions have been forced to close and resorted to distance and blended learning. Therefore, I am very, very happy that SEAMEO SPAFA has been able to meaningfully develop this online program and manage to launch the 2-month online course specifically on rock art of Southeast Asia and the world. This highlights our efforts in researching and recording rock as well as managing and preserving rock art sites. This important online course took actually a significant amount of time, dedication, and hard work behind the scene from SEAMEO SPAFA team. I would like to take this opportunity to convey my sincere appreciation to all of you, especially to our esteemed rock art experts, resource persons, archaeologists, and cultural heritage professionals for your tremendous efforts in this online course, as well as ongoing collaborative activities with SEAMEO SPAFA. This course undoubtedly brings Southeast Asia closer to enhancing our regional understanding, cooperation, and unity of purpose, especially in promoting the preservation of archaeological asset and cultural heritage resources. SEAMEO, together with 26 centers, 11 member countries, networks, associate and affiliate members, are committed to providing opportunities for equal access to learning opportunities to all learners in this platform and in managing our sustainable development goals, human capital, towards conserving and safeguarding cultural and natural heritage. I would like to thank SEAMEO SPAFA and its team partners for your great efforts, hard work in conducting this meaningful online course to connect regional archaeologists, cultural heritage stakeholders, and to our education officials and personnel. I wish you all a successful training course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ethel. And I believe many of our SPAFA SESH viewers today are participants who have already registered to join the Rock Art online course. However, if you haven't joined the course yet, we have good news for you. Registration to join our Rock Art course is still open, but hurry because registration will close by the end of this week. In today's sesh, we are joined by 4 of the international lineup of rock art course instructors, and they will be sharing details on their respective course lessons and what to expect in the coming weeks. One of the 4 instructors is SPAFA's senior specialist in archaeology, Dr. Noel Tan, whose own research specialty is rock art, and he is the main coordinator for this rock art online course, and he will be moderating today's sesh. But before I hand over the floor to Dr. Noel Tan, just a reminder to all our viewers on Facebook and on Zoom to please participate in our sesh by asking questions to today's speakers. If you are joining on Facebook, you can leave your questions in the comment section under the live feed. And for those joining us on the Zoom platform, please leave your questions for our speakers in the Q&A tab. We will be selecting one winner from Facebook and one from Zoom based on the questions that you submit to our speakers to win a SPAFA souvenir. So we look forward to seeing what questions you have for our speakers today. Without further ado, please join me now in welcoming the moderator for today's sesh and Brockhart of Southeast Asia and the World Lead Coordinator, Dr. Noel Tan.
Thanks, John. Can I be seen?
Yes, you can be seen, Noel.
Oh, great. Thanks again, John. And thank you, everyone, to our esteemed guests of honors for our guests of honor for the kind words for opening this session. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone out there, and also to all our Muslim viewers. Selamat Hari Raya Eid Mubarak. Our friends in the Muslim world, it is a great time for celebration for you as well, and my thoughts are with you. Welcome to this morning's SPAFA Sesh, which is the opening of the online course Rock Art of Southeast Asia and the World. This is something that I've been very excited to work on and very happy to coordinate with a number of international experts. The course runs from today until June, and to date we have over 120 people joining us from all over the globe. So we have like maybe 45% of us Southeast Asians, and everyone else is from far-flung places, the US, Nigeria, Poland. We have friends joining us from India, and the Guam and the Federated States of Micronesia. And I'm so happy that we can have a really global classroom for this course. The objective of this course is to give participants a global perspective on rock art, featuring rock art from all over the world. But as is our mandate, we have a special focus on Southeast Asia, because I don't think many of you may know that Southeast Asia is an area that's a region that is rich in rock art. For those of you who are still wondering about the course, this course is self-paced, so you learn at your own time. This is especially important because everyone is living in different time zones. So we designed the course so that people can follow the course at their own time. Every week we have a few lectures that are released. You can view the lectures at your convenience and read the materials and follow on the quiz. So what's great about this course is that we have the entire, all the continents of the world represented. And it's an endeavor that would not be possible if we did not have a brilliant lineup of teachers, of lecturers, who are experts from their part of the world. And so today we are joined with four, if you include me, lecturers on the course. We have Jannie Loubser from the USA, it's coming across from Atlanta, Georgia, I believe. We have Ms. Saw Choye, who is soon going to be Dr. Saw from Malaysia, and Andrea Hallendoni from the Philippines, but she is joining us from the Gold Coast in Australia. So could I ask our speakers to come join us online? So maybe I will start with myself, because I'm going to give the very first lecture for the course, and it's the introductory lecture. And you will see my face quite a number of times. I think for all of you who have been registering for the course, you would know my name because I've been the person who's been emailing all of you. And sorry to be bugging you and spamming you. I will be giving the lecture this week on the introduction to the course, and a little bit about Southeast Asia and a little bit about rock art. And later on in the course, in week 6, I will also give a lecture about the rock art of mainland Southeast Asia, which is the areas of Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia. So these are places that you don't normally think about a rock art, but there are rock art sites in these areas, which I'll be very happy to share with you. So may I first bring the introduction to Jannie, who is joining us from Atlanta, I believe. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about what you'll be talking about?
My name is Jannie Loubser. I'm originally from South Africa, but I've been in Atlanta since '93. And I'll be talking about rock art in the southeastern United States and the woodlands there, focusing on Georgia, Western North Carolina. And basically, I'm an archaeologist specializing in rock art and the management, conservation, recording, graffiti removal, but also excavation and authoring of management documents and management reports. So I guess later on I'll be talking about one of my favorite sites. But I guess for introduction, I think that probably does it.
Thanks, Jannie. I have to especially thank Jannie because he is joining us from late at night in Atlanta. So really thank you for joining us despite the time difference. Going down the list, may I invite Andrea. Andrea, please tell us.
Hi, so I'm Andrea Hallendoni. I'm a senior research fellow at Griffith University. And I guess like Jannie, I'm an archaeologist that specializes in rock art. In fact, recently I was going through my closet and I realized I haven't actually used my trowel in like 8 years since I started focusing on rock art. I focus mostly on digital techniques and recording rock art in 3D. So not just rock art, but also the area around it. So I also use drones. In my talk, you'll see me talking about the digital techniques, a lot of which I developed while in the Philippines working on the rock art there. And initially early on my research, I tried to focus on photogrammetry and other low-cost methods. And now I've expanded a bit to laser scanning, but I still think that the photogrammetry is something everyone can do. And so I talk about it a lot in my talk.
Thanks, Andrea. Andrea's talk is really high-tech, and I really enjoyed her talk. You'll see her in week 5, I believe. And it's really high-tech. It's got the geek in me is really excited to see all that stuff. And yeah, like you, Andrea, I also don't know what a trowel is anymore. For our next speaker, Saul, may I please invite you to tell us about yourself?
Hello everyone, my name is Chaw. You can just call me Saw. So I'm a PhD candidate from Center for Global Archaeological Research, University Science Malaysia. So my main research is also on rock art, and now I'm working together with the local communities in Perak to document the rock art of Kinta Valley. Because Malaysia, we don't know a lot about rock art, and there are too little inventories on the rock art. So for my talk, I'll be giving an overview on the rock art of Peninsular Malaysia, like what are the new discoveries and what are the new interpretations on the rock art.
Thanks, Saul. I'm always excited to see Saul's Facebook feed because it's almost as if every other week she's out in the field and finding new stuff. I'm always very envious of that. Over the next few weeks, you will hear from our 3 speakers and other speakers as well. We've themed the rock art course around regions. So every week you will learn the rock art of a different region in the world. So Europe, the Americas, Africa, Asia, and I mean Greater Asia and Oceania. And then we also have, in those weeks, we've interspersed it with specific segments about rock art in Southeast Asia. So Saul will be talking to us in week 7 about the rock art of Peninsular Malaysia, and she's also giving us a virtual site visit in week 7 as well. We also, in this course, cover the basics of site recording, rock art recording, conservation, site management. And as I mentioned before, we also have a number of virtual tours of rock art sites. So it's not just lectures throughout the whole course. We do want to take you virtually to some of these places. For the rest of this time, usually for our SPAFA sessions, this is really our webinar series. And because our speakers are already giving their own lectures, I've decided that we're not going to have like small lectures anymore for the rest of this webinar, for the rest of this session. So I've asked everybody to share an image or share a site of their favorite rock art sites. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a site that they're going to be talking about in their lectures. So who wants to go first? Maybe Jannie, because Jannie's, it's late at night for Jannie. Jannie, would you like to share with us your site for this evening?
Sure. Can you see that? Do you see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, I've got a big cursor here, so hopefully you can see the cursor. The site I'm going to talk about is Judukula Rock, and it's in the area that I'm going to talk in the course about, the southeastern United States. And it's in the Appalachian Mountains there of the southeastern United States, in western North Carolina. And the site is significant because for many reasons, it's got the most elaborate site east of the Mississippi. It's got almost 2,000 separate motifs. And it's also very special to the Cherokee people, who's got a reservation not very far from there. And they trace their history back into pre-contact times. And this site we know dates to around about between 3,800 to recent times. So it's significant to the people. This is what it looks like, a drone photograph on the left, and then a tracing that I did some years ago on the right. You can see it's very elaborate. It's got all these peckings and then engravings, because they first peck it, probably with the help of water, to speed it along and then engrave it. And it's soapstone. So in the bottom here, you could see extraction, where about between 3,800 years ago and 3,000 years ago, they extracted soapstone bowls to put it directly on fire to cook. And in some places, on some rocks, not this rock, you see that some of these cupules and some of these meanders are truncated by the soapstone. So that indicates that those things are older than the soapstone. So this goes back to between 3,800 and 3,000 years ago. But then there are younger things like these figures that you see up there. And there's also a footprint there that's a bit later. And other sites, you get vulvar shapes that are also younger, probably date to what they call the woodland period, anything between 3,000 and 2,000 years ago. And also including these claw prints you get here that they say is Judukula, the master of games print. And he's quite a well-known deity in that area. And then you get these late Mississippian concentric rings here that date to the last 1,000 years. And right down here, I don't know whether you can see it over here, you get an incision with a metal tool. So that's in the post-contact period, which is anything from 1760, to recent times. And some of these incised lines here too are more recent. So in terms of the conservation, we know that the Cherokees lived there for a very long time. When the first European settlers, Euro-American settlers settled there in the late 1700s, they found that the site was very special still to the Cherokee. And the first known recording of it is 1920. There might be earlier drawings, but you can see here is a rock. They enhance it with chalk, which shouldn't be done because it might mess up cation ratio dating, for instance. And there's an apple tree next to it. You can see it in the left-hand corner there. And that apple tree is growing in an area that we later found there's actually a spring underneath the rock. By this time, the Parker family bought the property from the Cowards. The Cowards were the first people there. The Cherokees still visited the place, even though they were pushed out of the area in 1838. Some of them still lived in the Kuala boundary, which is a reservation about 20 kilometers from here. So people still came from Oklahoma, west of the Mississippi, to visit the site. And also, of course, the Cherokee from the nearby Kuala boundary. And the Parkers allowed people to come to the property because they knew it was special to them. It had a big religious and spiritual importance to them. Here is the grandfather Parker of the current Parker who lives in the area. And again, it is highlighted with chalk, which we do not want to do. You can see in the 1930s up here, you can still see the entire rock. But by the 1930s, because of a road that the county built on top of the rock, you find that it's starting to silt up. So it's diminishing in size. And by the 1960s, the Parker family gave the property to the county, Jackson County in Western North Carolina, and they built this cement block structure around it with a roof. And that actually caused more damage, biological growth inside. The southeast is very humid. So I guess it's like Southeast Asia. You enclose an area and you get all sorts of microbiological growth taking root. And as you can see, people use it as a bathroom. They did graffiti here. People stood on the rock, and the soil in the southeast is very sandy, even though some people say clay, it's got a lot of sand. So that is abrasive. So by the 1970s, they took the house away. They replaced it with this shed, this gazebo-like structure on wooden post and a roof. And that also didn't work very well. Rainwater came in, and the spring also increased the rain problem there, and people still climbed onto the rock. But at this stage, people didn't know about the spring. And by the 1990s, you could see up here how the rock has shrunk in size because of the deposit buildup. They had a little boardwalk installed there. They had this the wooden base still of where they sawed these pillars off. And sometimes people removed the cables and they used the rock as a ramp. So the rock has endured a lot of abuse through the ages and or through the last 100 years at least, but it's still remarkably survived quite well. And by the early 2000s, they decided by 2007 that the rock is going to disappear if nothing is done. And so in consultation with the Cherokee Tribal Historical Preservation Officer of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Indians, as they call themselves, and also the state archaeologists in Western North Carolina, the Forest Service, Jackson County, local residents, they all came together and they funded the thorough recording of the place. They contracted me to do the recording and also to make management recommendations. And as you can see here, by 2011, after we've done some excavations, some landscaping, we got in an expert landscaping firm that can do a job properly, use the right materials to do the walkway or the boardwalk with interpretive signs. And the interpretation is done in both the English language and the Cherokee language. And I don't know whether you know, but the Cherokees has got their own syllabary, their own writing system. And the Cherokees, since the 1820s, were fully versed in this. So Cherokees can still come here to do their rituals and ceremonies, and tourists can come here. The boardwalk keep people away from the site. And it is a management strategy, I think, that I know that other places in the Southeast have emulated. A sort of a minimalist strategy, a reversible strategy, because if it doesn't work, you can take that boardwalk away at some stage. But yet it instructs people what is on the rock, where to look, and about the age of the rock and all the other things that are going on, and also that it's very important to the Cherokees. And sometimes, like this Cherokee elder gentleman who is now deceased, they come and visit the site. They come sometimes with sticks because the rock is so important to them that they're not really allowed to, or they feel they cannot touch it. And you see also this river cane there at the back, and traditionally they use those also to point at the site. So right now there's been one incidence of graffiti. I removed the graffiti, and they've taken some extra measures to discourage graffiti from happening. And as you can see, the site is quite unique and spectacular. And it's part of a wider tradition that you get in the Southeast, the track rock, what I call the track rock petroglyph tradition that stretches way down into Georgia. It's part of the ancestral Cherokee tradition. Perhaps some of the Creek Muskogee people also got to do with it. But you get other types of rock art sites, what I will talk about in the course. You get caves that are quite different. And then you get open rock shelters with paintings, and the caves have got drawings, and fine line incisions. So you get a variety of rock art techniques and styles. The styles are more contingent on the different linguistic group, and the techniques has got more to do with the kind of site that you're getting. And then, of course, the management of the caves. Some of them are deep dog zone caves, are quite different from what you see here. And so basically, that's all of what I've got to say tonight, I think, about the sites. Any questions later on, it's welcome.
Thanks, Jannie. Yeah, we will take questions at the end once everyone's given their short presentations. I just have to say, Jannie, that I was really, because I've never worked with petroglyphs very much, but I was really interested in seeing how you could tell the different chronological layers within the petroglyphs, which was really very enlightening for me.
Yes, you can. There's actually a stratigraphy to it, and not all those marks that you see on the rocks were done at the same time. They were done over a period of 3,000 years. So you can do the math. Per year, very few things were done. And they took a lot of effort to do. It is quite a commitment of these people to do these things. Even though it's soapstone, it's still a hard rock.
Cool. So may I invite for our next speaker, could I invite Saul to share your rock art site?
Yeah. So now this is the side view, right? All right. Okay, so I'll be talking about the part of the Peninsular Malaysia, which is this part. And I'll be focusing on the state of Perak and on Kinta Valley, which is a river valley in Kinta. It's also where Gua Tambun, one of our most famous rock art site in Malaysia, because it was known to be the only red painting site until 2019. So prior to 2019, we only know 3 rock art sites within this area, apart from Lenggong Valley, which is another valley. So after we did a lot of collaborations with the local communities, now we have at least 40 sites in Kinta Valley and at least 11 red painting sites in Kinta Valley. So these are all the other types of rock art that we can see. A lot of new addition. Some of them are from Gua Tambun, but a lot of them are the new rock art, which is unpublished yet, and we haven't finished documents all of them. So my favorite rock art site will be the one in the southern part of Kinta Valley. I can't really disclose the location because we are afraid that people might go into that site because in Kinta Valley, a lot of sites that they are very easily accessible to the public. And this site, it is full of graffiti as well. But this is a very special case for Malaysia because it's located within a deep, dark cave. Normally in Malaysia, our rock art will be placed on rock shelter or close to the entrance of a cave. You don't really need to go deep into the cave. So the rock art from this cave, there are a lot of red paintings and charcoal drawings. And this is from the ceiling that I was documenting from. As you can see, the human figure over here is actually this one. It's about 1 meter in length at least. So there are a lot of very unusual rock art that we don't see from other sites. As usual, the red paintings, they're always solid in field. They consist of geometric shapes, they consist of animal figures, and they are very large. And then we can see the overlapping of the charcoal drawings. And although they are charcoal drawings, for example, the ones from Lenggong Valley, they are presumed to be about 200 years old. But the one in this cave, they are different because they don't really consist of contact period rock art. For example, some of the anthropomorph over here is a very unique type, and we don't see it elsewhere. So their local indigenous community told us that this site is quite sacred to them, and they have never been into here because they are prohibited to come inside. So maybe only for ritualistic purpose, their shamans, or we call bomo halak, might enter this cave to do their ritual. But for now, we are not sure of anything yet. Also, you can see there are a lot of graffiti and all these drawings. This cave was also used as a communist hideout during the World War. And maybe other villagers, they also hide inside this cave during the emergency period. We do not know a lot at the moment. And there's also this panel of 3 wild boars lining up, which I personally like it a lot. And the wild boars, they closely resembles the one from Wat Tambun. But Wat Tambun and this cave, they are about 30 kilometers apart. So other interesting things from these panels is also that the charcoal drawings, they are very small. And these patterns, they actually resembles the one from the indigenous communities' decorations. So they are overlapped on top of these red paintings. And also there are 2 handprints below this wild boar, another one at the nose. So handprints is not as common as Indonesia for Malaysia case. So there are a lot of mystery, and I really like this side. Few other types, there are a lot of different styles. It's like a mixture of everything within this cave. So you can see again, there's red drawings, and the charcoal drawings, they intentionally avoided all the red paintings. And these are all something like using fingers, and then they just draw all over this wall. Another very peculiar looking creature, which we still don't know what is it, maybe a snake or some mythological creatures. And then again, you can see the black rock art and the red rock art depicted side by side. So we haven't finished documenting all of the rock art from this cave. For now, I have documented at least 400 motifs, but it's a very, very big cave. It's at least 1 kilometer in length, and we only been to a very small chamber of this cave. So that's my sharing part. I think hope it's okay.
Thanks, so that's great. I think you have a lot of work cut out for you for your next decade or so. So I'm looking forward to seeing more research from you. Before I go on to Andrea, maybe I'll share mine because I don't want to take, Andrea's one is quite special. I don't want to steal her thunder. So maybe I'll share my sites first before we get to Andrea. So my site is in Myanmar, and this is a site that I only briefly talk about in the very first lecture, but I don't go back to it again. It's in the Shan State, right in the border between Shan State and Mandalay Division. The site's name is Kabani or Mackinac. It was discovered in 2015, so quite recent. And you can see here it's a shelter that was being used by the hunters. On the left, you can see rather modern graffiti. It's a really nice white space, and there is some rock art in the ceiling, but because it was used by hunters, they started fires in the cave, and so a lot of the rock art has been covered with soot. But in the background, you will see this giant rock, and you can see this little line over there. I'll give you a sense of scale. So it's a very large rock, and it's called, we'll call it the elephant rock. You can see the elephant right at the top there. You can see the curve of the elephant's neck and back. And you can see that it's a life-sized painting of an elephant. So that's the paintings that we could see from our visit over there. But when we came back and we did a digital enhancement on the rock art, yeah, so you can see the elephant. We did a digital enhancement, and what was really amazing is that we could see a lot more detail from the elephant. Notably, the elephant was carrying a leash, so it's a tamed elephant, and also the elephant was surrounded by 4, in fact 6 other people. And so what I think this is meant to display is that this is probably the only ever rock painting of an elephant taming scene, because one does not domesticate an elephant. You do not go out to the wild and capture an elephant. You have to tame one from young, and this is not something that you do in a single person. You do it alone. You do it in a group, and you capture a young elephant and then you tame it from young. And so that's a really interesting image from this scene in Myanmar, which I hope to one day be able to go back and do some more research on. So here are some close-ups of the people, and you can see that they're wearing these striped designs on their bodies, which probably means some sort of textiles. And so the ones immediately to the front of the elephant are a lot clearer, but you can see that the bits of them are damaged. The rock wall has fallen off. And then on the right, you have 2 more images of people. You can only just barely see the heads and shoulders. And then just yesterday, when I was relooking at this image, there are 2 more human figures in this scene. So there are 6 people surrounding this elephant. So that's what I thought was pretty interesting about this site, that we have elephants. We have an elephant, which is not an uncommon motif in Southeast Asian rock art, but this seems to be possibly an elephant taming scene. And that's my contribution to the rock paintings. We will have some more pictures of rock art from Myanmar in my talks in week 6. And so without much further ado, may I invite Andrea to share her rock art, which is not from the Philippines. It's from
yeah, it's from Australia. You know, trying to pick your favorite rock art site is very difficult, I think, for all rock art specialists. But I picked this one in Inilak Hill because I've been spending a lot of time there the last couple of years, and there are aspects of it I really like, which I'll go into in a bit. But this is pretty much the hill, what it looks like. You know, it's by a billabong and everything. This bird looked like it almost hit my drone, but it was fine. And then this is where the hill is in relation to Australia. So it's in the Northern Territory, up in our West Arnhem Land. And this is the rock art. So this hill has maybe 100 rock art sites or so. We haven't really counted yet, but that's the estimate of the guides and artists who work here. So in the community, there's an art center that's actually quite famous, and a lot of them double as artists and guides. And so I went up with some of them, and I taught them photogrammetry. So I'm very proud of them. And they took the photos for this, and I just make it into a model. So wherever I go, I try to do this. I think that we have to teach the communities how to record their own rock art, because it can't just be the specialists coming in and doing it all the time. And the reason why I chose this one is I really like how in Australia, a lot of the rock art has stories that people know, they still know what the stories are. So in this one, it's these two brothers. One of them, this tall man, which I highlighted in the 3D model. So if you see in the rock art, you can't really see it that well. It's a very faint line. So I highlighted it just so that you'd be able to see it better. But these two brothers are fighting this tall man because he has cursed one of them and made them pregnant. You can see there are little people inside. So it's like pregnant with some sort of being. So he's going to die. So they're trying to kill him. And then it's beautiful too, because you can see the material culture that they're holding. You know, they're holding spear throwers, you know, so that they can launch their spears further and faster. And this is also a very significant iconic image for Australian rock art. It was used in the, you know, it's the inspiration for the logo for Australian Archaeological Association, which is probably the biggest association for archaeologists in Australia. And yeah, these are the reasons why I really like this scene, and I really like the rock art in this area, because you have people who still have knowledge of it. And so you have this informal information, not just studying the rock art as it is on the wall, but you can ask somebody, do you know what this means? And a lot of times they do. You know, and it's a very clear scene, there's a clear story that goes with it. And I think this can also help inform us about rock art in a lot of places, you know, even if we don't have that story, that connection anymore. Joey Naimira is the person who took the images to make the 3D model. That's it for me.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for sharing your rock art from the different parts of the world. And this kind of perfectly captures the spirit of the course, that you do get to see this wide spread of rock art sites from different parts of the world. And even if you're an expert of rock art in one area, you come away knowing something else that you didn't know before, which is what I really like. So we have a few questions pop up already. Maybe I'll send the questions, I'll address the questions to Jannie first, because I know it's quite late tonight. I don't want to keep you up too late. This question is from AJ. How long on average does it take to protect a site after discovery in the US?
It all depends where it falls, who the people involved are, and so sometimes it takes too long. I think a major thing in America, in the US, that people still have to learn to do is that it is not sufficient just to remove the graffiti. You've got to do the management stuff first, and then you remove the graffiti, and to make sure that you know, nothing happens, because very often one is hired to do the graffiti, and then there's no management in place, and then the graffiti just reoccurs. I remember Sharon Sullivan made that point also during the RAN meeting that we had in France, that proper management is the most important thing. at these sites. So it's unfortunately most of the time it's kind of reactive, and it varies. Sometimes it can be quite quick. It depends on who the people are at the agencies, as far as I know. So, you know, I don't think there's a clear-cut period of, you know, after the site is found or whatever, recorded, and when they start to manage it. It can vary. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and then there's a follow-up question from Christine, which I think you might be the best suited to answer. Can the graffiti affect the chemical composition of the rock art if it's placed over the art, and how do you work around that?
Yes, the graffiti, if it's paint, it will leave chemical traces on top of the art. With metallic stuff, there'll be traces of the metals that they've used. And of course, some of the chemicals will kind of leach out, if you like, and distribute across the rest of the surface. So everything that happens at a site has an impact on the site. And I think that's something that, even with recording and stuff, going into caves, for instance, they're far more susceptible, of course, than open air sites. And so when you do remove the graffiti, you've got to kind of consult with people first, you know, what do they want to do? How far do they want you to go? How many steps are you going to use along the way? And so it doesn't happen in a vacuum, and it's not always up to the conservator. It's very much like a medical doctor. When somebody goes for a treatment, you get options. So sometimes, like in dark zone caves, for instance, the photographs that were shown by Saw earlier on in the cave, here in America, they tend not to remove graffiti there because of the sensitivity in caves, and it's kind of like a time capsule too. So it's far more rare that people remove graffiti in caves than on open air sites. And it also depends, of course, what kind of graffiti it is. But any action at a site is going to leave traces, unfortunately. And also, when you do remove the graffiti, sometimes the solvents that sometimes one is forced to use, that will also leave traces, even though you try your best to flush a site. But nothing is completely reversible in conservation.
There are a couple of questions from Dick Lapitan that maybe you would answer, or maybe the answer might already be in your course, in your lecture for the course. But for the rock art in Judukula, do the inscriptions represent anything or tell a story?
Yeah, they tell many stories. It is Judukula is Chulukulu. That is the correct pronunciation. Judukula is a European version of the pronunciation. Chulukulu was the master of game, or is still the master of game. And you get among a lot of Native American groups of a master of game who is in charge of the game that they keep below the ground surface, and then people has got to go and ask this deity or spirit being for game to release. Out west, it's normally they keep bison. Out in this part of the world with Judukula, it is deer that they keep underground so that the hunters can access it. They know about biological procreation, but also there is the belief that these things ultimately do come from below the ground. And Chulukulu, it means he's got it slanted, and it refers to his eyes, and in particular it refers to the pupils of his eyes. And the pupils of his eyes look like those of certain snake species and also cat species, which means that he can, like other spirit beings, can see at night. It's got night visions like those animals that he can share. It's got the same eyes. And also it means that he can see your thoughts. So this Judukula lived in a mountaintop about, I would say, 10 kilometers from this rock. And when people want to go and see him, they've got to go up this Caney Creek trail up from their town, which is downriver. And then they've got to stop at the rock first and do various rituals. They've got to go to the water, which is a ritual that's quite common in that area. They've got to scratch themselves, they've got to fast, and then they can proceed. But there's one story or a number of stories, there's variations, where they didn't do it. And Judukula or Judukula got peeved off, and he jumped down from his mountaintop. And as he landed, that paw print that you saw in the recording with 7 digits, which is also of medicine people, shamans, if you like, they've got 7 digits sometimes. That imprint was left in the rock, and also with his nail, then he inscribed this line in the rock. And he said that next time you come, if you cross this line into my domain, Judukula's domain, you've got to stop here, otherwise there'll be problems. And but there's various other things on the rock, maybe smaller depictions of Judukula, and also a map, a sort of a map of the a small-scale map of the Loubser Mountains of his domain, and various things that go on in his domain. Some Cherokees will also say that it depicts stuff from the upper world, from the sky zone, from the sky vault. And there's also things of what's going on below ground. So it's kind of a nexus between upper, lower, and this world. And these are not what I'm saying. These are what the Cherokees say about the place. And so it's been added to through the years. But I think that the basic concept of accessing what's going beyond the rock, what's going on, accessing the spirit world, getting favors from the spirit beings, be it women who want babies, be it men who want to hunt, be men who want to marry, people who go before they go on a raid of other towns. So there's various things of approaching spirit beings, and this is all in the rock. Some Cherokee says also creation stories, but of course, as in many other religious beliefs, creation is an ongoing process. So it's all in the rock, and apparently, one's got to be a medicine person, through tradition, that to understand everything that's going on the rock.
Cheers. I have some quick questions for Saul. Now answering Christina Burdett's questions, Dawn and AJ's questions. So for Saul, when you say that you have 400 motifs to document, how do you document these? And how old are the rock arts at these sites?
So I basically document similar to the ways how Noel document the rock art at Gua Tambun. So as long as the motifs, they are obviously separating, they have some distance between different motifs, we consider them as different. But of course, they might be as a single picture to the artist, but we do not know. But doing this inventory, my purpose is so that next time people can refer to it and look at and easily search for the images. So as long as they don't connect to each other, I will consider them as a separate ones. So based on this, I've documented about 400 motifs for that site. And then how old are they? I'm not sure, because as you can see, the site is very, very disturbed. And there are a lot of people going in and out ever since the World War. So we haven't been able to do any chronometric dating in any sites apart, even not only in Kinta Valley, but throughout Peninsular Malaysia, we have never done any chronometric dating, only relative dating. For Gua Tambun, they are presumed to be Neolithic period at least, because they found some Neolithic pottery sherds, but also a lot of Hoabinian stone tools at the site. For Guatambun, that's the case for Guatambun. Yeah, and then for the other side, because the similarity between the rock art motifs, we can hypothesize that maybe they are related, they are from a similar period. But the black drawings, they are usually younger because they are obviously superimposed on top of the red paintings.
So the black is assumed to be charcoal, but what's the red color?
Probably hematite, because we can find a lot of hematite in situ within that cave, just opposite of the panel.
Thanks, Saul. Some questions of Andrea. Is the rock art connected to the dream time or song lines? You know better this than I do.
Some of the rock art is connected to Dreamtime and songlines, not just in this area, but all over Australia. They have rock art depictions of songlines and different Dreamtime beings. Like what Jannie was talking about, you have these, creation is an ongoing process, and this is what the Dreamtime is.
And can you date the rock art in Australia?
This particular one, probably not, the one I showed, because oftentimes when you find these hematite paintings, these red ones, they're so ingrained into the rock. They're not sitting on top of the rock anymore. They are like part of it. They're part of the surface, part of the porousness they've seeped in. But rock art nearby of beeswax has been dated. Beeswax motifs, but it's completely different too. There's some relative chronology dating that's been done, but nothing, not absolute.
Christina had a question for me about the date of elephant rock art. I don't want to take up the time here because I think there are other questions, but Christina, if you can leave a comment in the classroom, I will get back to you because it's a fairly complex answer to that. I want to direct this question from Kristen to all three of you, which is, in general, what measures do you take to respect Indigenous customs if there are Indigenous communities present in the areas around rock art sites? Maybe Andrea, I'll start with you because
if they're Indigenous people associated with the rock art, you want to include them. So both, let's say I just came back from field work on Guam, and I worked with the Chamorro there, the Indigenous people there, to record the rock art with them. Like I said earlier, partly to teach them how to do the 3D modeling and recording, but also, they offer a unique perspective, even if they've never seen that particular rock art before. So same in Australia, I work with the communities that I've that are nearby, and make sure that you follow the customs. So you take the lead from them on what's the proper way to approach the site, which sites can be recorded, which sites can even be seen. There's some sites I'm not allowed to see. And so you have to respect all that. There's been times when here in Australia, because there are things like men's sites that women are not supposed to see. So I didn't record it, but I had a male colleague record it, take the photographs, and then I can process it, make a 3D model, but without seeing it. And they just have to tell me if my 3D model is okay or not. So it gets a bit complicated there. In the Philippines, I haven't worked on any sites with Indigenous peoples directly involved. Hopefully one day I get to go to Palawan and work with the Taut Batu there. That's a future plans, hopefully.
Saul and Jannie, would you like to weigh in on this question?
Well, in Malaysia, a lot of Indigenous community, they have already been relocated to the so-called new village during the colonial period. So a lot of them are already detached from their traditional lands. So all the rock art sites that I've been to so far, none of them are actually close to the Indigenous villages. Or I have tried to conduct some interviews or field works to the Indigenous village in the region, but not close to the rock art site. None of them have any knowledge, or they just say that this is not part of their thing. And we're still looking around and interview more indigenous community. Some of them will bring them to the site, but most of them, they don't want to leave their village. So it's hard. So I'll print up some photos of the rock art and show it to them and ask for their, if the elders, if they have seen anything or anything, any information or knowledge that they can share. But so far, all of their first response is that we don't go to cave. We just go to the jungle. We avoided the cave. We don't go to the rock shelter. Maybe because of the relocation scheme in the early days. So a lot of things have changed a lot.
Jannie, do you like to comment?
In America, fortunately, all the agencies now, they do consult with the Native American groups, even if they're in instances where there's been a connection lost. But in many, many instances, more than what people realize, there's still connections and still people even sometimes painting stuff and engraving stuff. And so it is imperative to consult Native American people for many, many reasons. Ethical, one can learn a lot from them, for consultation, what the best things are to do at a site, and for interpretation, also conservation, and more where possible, involve people to help out with graffiti removal and with recording and so on. So I have to say that is a positive thing that's happening in the US is consulting with and involving Native people.
Thanks. We still have about 9 questions left, and I'm pretty sure we don't have enough time to get through all of them. So I'm going to apologize in advance if we don't get to your questions. We have a lot of good questions, and it's just really hard to select the ones for everyone. It's hard to get to all of them. But we have a question from Alana Sherry for Saw. Hers is one of the first questions that came in. She says the deeper and darker you go, do the images change? Maybe only the top shamans were allowed to enter the cave and paint them and view them? Or do you see, do you see spatial differences in the rock art that you've observed?
So for the site that I just shared is basically the only site that I've been to that is inside a deep dark cave. So I can't really compare, but all the way from the entrance to the cave, there are not a single rock art on any walls or anything. There are graffiti still, but they are not rock art at all. Obviously, graffiti like writing names and years. So it's only until we reach that chamber that we can start to see rock art on the walls. And we haven't been able to go even further down inside because it's a really very large cave. So I can't really say if there's a change in the stylistic or anything. Yeah.
Yes, so that site that you showed is kind of unique because it's the only red painting site in a cave, right? But that you know of currently, I'm sure you'll get more data in time. All right, I'm going to have one last question for everybody. And this is from, where are we looking at? This is from Ian Katalaba. His comment is, one of the favorite aspects of rock art is similar to Dr. Andrea's and my sites that showed a story highlighting the community's culture. For sites with very vague images, how do you approach in classifying them without making modern inferences? And I think this question should apply to all of us. So maybe I get a reaction from you first.
So basically, I'll take photos of everything That's the first thing I do. So you take photos of everything, and I use photo enhancements or tracing images. I always just include the original photographs. So next time another researcher, they can have a different interpretation and they can see how things change, so that I don't really imply my own ideas on it. Even if showing to, for example, if you are collaborating with the indigenous community as well, it's best that I'll bring them to the site. There was once I actually bring an indigenous friend to that cave in particular, and he just have too much going on in his feelings and everything. So he couldn't really talk, and he'll have to sit there and go through some time so that he can really absorb these things. And I still haven't talked to him after about this site. So maybe the next time I see him, he will have a different interpretations, and he will talk to his villagers, his elders. So I don't think that there's a fixed interpretation for rock art anyway, unless we can find the artist. But so far we couldn't find any yet for Malaysia.
Andrea, you want to chip in?
Yeah, well, like what Jannie mentioned earlier, that and saw as well, having indigenous colleagues really helps to be able to, you know, if they have insight into what it is. But that said, like, part of why I developed so many digital techniques was to be able to see the art better, you know, because sometimes I think that we were like de-stretch was such a blessing to rock art researchers, because it allowed us to see painted rock art better. And then developing ways to enhance engravings was as well something to help us. So that, I think, you know, of course, there'll always still be vague images, but we're trying to work on making some of them less vague if we can. And I don't know about others, but I have no problem classifying something as unidentified if I can't recognize it. A lot of my stuff, especially in the Philippines, it's unidentified because it's so badly degraded. I can't see the whole thing anymore. So that's it for me.
Yeah, I think it's really important to just be upfront with your methodology and say, oh, this is how I'm recording it. This is how we classify things, and then someone can relook at that, and you know, replicability is quite important when we do our recordings as well. Jannie, would you like to leave a comment?
Yeah, I think if you use archaeological systematics, you know, with lithic classification and also ceramic classification, you go for shape. And so what I do is try and isolate motifs, which is in itself a decision, but then you look at the shape. You don't say what the identity is, you don't interpret it. And I think I know that there's software now, artificial intelligence, that can classify shapes. And it's very interesting that these things do have a geographical distribution, like in style, and they do have a temporal distribution. You know, that is sort of the classic way of doing archaeology. Now, we know also that the Native American way of classification would be different in many instances. And for instance, I know that human footprints, people will classify human footprints different from bear footprints, but to them, it could just be a shape-shifting person that's shape-shifted into a bear, for instance. And different styles from maybe different periods would be all grouped together. But I still think it's interesting in terms of archaeology, as long as archaeologists are interested in time, space, systematics, to keep the thing of shape, form, and placement, all those criteria in mind. And if one wants to interpret chronology and spatial distribution, but at the same time, recognize that that is a different way of looking and classifying things maybe than what indigenous people would do. So I think one can do both and gain knowledge from that. The one shouldn't determine the other.
Thank you. Okay, one last question. First for Jannie, but also for everybody. And this question is from Alana. It sounds like the rock art that you described, Jannie, is similar to the sand rock art, accessing the spirit world in a three-tiered cosmos. Can we consider some of these beliefs universal?
Just repeat the question. What is universal?
The idea that the spirit world and the three-tiered cosmos is universal.
Not necessarily. Not in all rock art, and the three-tier cosmos, I think, is also a simplification, perhaps. I mean, if you look at the Cherokee stuff, for instance, they've got many tiers. And, you know, the division between lower world and upper world is not what people always think. You go into the dark zone caves, and this is also for Taino rock art, where you find flying creatures in the dark zone caves. You get birds and things depicted in the ground, the underground caves. And then on top of the ground, you'll get sometimes depictions of beings that are supposed to be underground. So you get reversals. It's also been said, I think wrongly, that the underworld is the chaotic world and the upper world is not. I think that's also a generalization if you start really looking carefully at the ethnography. And so yes, in certain places there might be a three-tiered cosmos, but I don't think it's necessarily universal.
Andrea, would you like to weigh in on that?
Yeah, similar to Jannie, I think, well, if by belief they just mean that there's rock art is symbolizing something spiritual, maybe yes, you can see that in an interpretation of a lot of rock art in a lot of places, but whether it's three-tier, I think is very debatable. I don't think that's the case universally. So yes, I think in the sense that sometimes rock art is trying to represent something spiritual, that can be seen.
All right, so with that, I'm going to bring this session to an end. I'm sorry for all the questions we couldn't get to. There are a couple that we weren't able to get to. But I'd like to thank all our speakers for joining us today and for being lecturers for the course. For those of you who are already in the classroom, the first lectures should be online now, so you should be able to access them. For those of you who've registered over the weekend, we're processing those registrations now. So from SIM Tech, I've seen your registration. We'll give you access within the day. You should get access to the classroom today. If you are still undecided on whether to join the course, we hope you do. And we hope this has convinced you to join us. We will leave the registrations open till the end of the week, and then by then we will absolutely close the registrations, because after that it'll take a while to catch up from the material that's already been out there. So with that, I'd like to thank again Jannie, Andrea, and Chaw for being with us this evening. And to all of you out there in Zoom and on Facebook for joining us. And we will see you in the classrooms, and if not, we will see you hopefully in person soon. Bye. Thank you. I'll hand it off to John.
Thanks, Noel. So thank you once again, Noel, and to all our distinguished panelists for being part of today's sesh. It was really interesting seeing your favorite rock art sites. And this was just a tidbit of what is coming in the online course. And it was already really fascinating. So if you are watching this, like Noel said, and you still haven't joined, don't forget, you can still join, and do it by the end of this week, because that's when we'll close registrations. And thank you to our viewers on Facebook and attendees on Zoom. Thank you especially if you submitted questions to our distinguished guest speakers today. And I have the winners from based on the questions that you submitted. And the winner from Facebook is Dick Lapitan, and the winner from Zoom is AJ Patap. We will be in touch with you shortly about sending your SPAFA souvenir to you. And this SPAFA sesh, if you were unable to watch the full thing or you just want to watch it again, it'll be available immediately on Facebook after this sesh, and it will also be uploaded onto SPAFA's YouTube channel. So thank you to all our viewers. We have also posted an evaluation link. We would really appreciate it if you could fill out that evaluation link based on this sesh so we can improve future SPAFA sessions. Thank you, everyone, and see you next time, and see you in the course.